And if we can compare, or if I can put the differences between Spirit Talker and the most known device that everybody use out there is the Ovilus. What are the differences between the Ovilus and Spirit Talker?
Okay, let's show you the Ovilus. So this is the Ovilus 5B. It's their latest model, and it's $549. So the Ovilus is basically it's a fancy EMF meter, and instead of it showing lights for how much EMF is being detected, it chooses a word. So if we scroll down here a little bit, so it has there's a few modes on it, and the main one is the dictionary mode. And it says here, words are voiced from the onboard dictionary based on environmental readings. The Ovilus 5 does not employ any random generation or algorithm to create speech in any sequence or structured form. So what they're saying is when something's detected, a word isn't chosen randomly, and it doesn't choose words in a particular sequence. It's got a predefined dictionary of 2,048 words, which is a little bit less than Spirit Talker. During normal operation, the Ovilus 5 will voice many words. This is the environment changes around the Ovilus triggering the voice. It's widely held that paranormal events create changes in the environment. It says that it detects the magnitude in energy changes.
So
However, it doesn't say what environment readings it's reading.
Exactly.
I have found a document. So this is the trademark for the Ovilus. Just to prove it, Chap Inc., that's Bill Chappell's company. And if we have a look at what it's classed in the trademark, it says it's an electronic device for detecting paranormal activity, namely electronic device for detecting electromagnetic fields, ionization, and static electricity. So in order for it to detect electromagnetic fields and static electricity, it needs the magnetometer sensor, like what phones have got. It also says it detects ionization. Now that's radiation, so I think it's trying to say that it's a Geiger counter, or it has some sort of Geiger counter in it. I'm not overly convinced that it has. Some of the Geiger counters that I've seen are a lot more bigger and look a lot more complex machines than.
And I've seen Geiger counters myself, and they are huge.
Yeah.
You have the smaller versions that you can have that detect like smaller, but they're not as accurate as a real one. So,
no.
Hello, cat.
So now we know that it detects electromagnetic fields, possibly radiation, and static electricity. So if we go back to here, it says when the energy changes are detected, the magnitude of the change is used to select one of 2,048 words. So I wrote an article a while ago about calculating magnitude on my website, because it's how the EMF meters work in my apps. I calculate the magnitude and then show the correct color on the LED, if you want to call it an LED. So the magnetometer in a phone has got 3 axes, X, Y, and Z. And let me show you the calculation down here. So first of all, you work out the maximum magnitude that the magnetometer can produce, and then using that, you can perform another calculation to actually get the magnitude, which is you get the value of the x-axis and times it by itself, add it to the y times the y and the z times the z, and then you take the square root of that. That gives you the magnitude of the magnetometer sensor. By performing another calculation, you can work out how far up the colour chart, if you like, you want
the
to
amount
show.
of boxes.
Yeah, so the higher the magnitude, the more of these little coloured boxes will be lit up. So here we've got 15 boxes. On the Ovilus, it's saying it can choose 2,048 words. So if you imagine you had 2,048 boxes, you calculate the magnitude, find the right box for that value, and then pull out that word. I'm not saying that's exactly how the Ovilus works, but from what I've read, that's how I think it works, and I'm pretty sure that's right, because it's how I would do it. So
And you
it's
have
like
better knowledge than me, I'm pretty sure.
so basically there's a one-dimensional list of words. You perform a calculation with the magnitude from the magnetometer, and using that value you pull out the correct word from that list in that position.
And we have a question that from Richard Chambers. Does how does the spirit know which magnitude relates to the word it wants to communicate?
Well, with the Ovilus, I don't know. I don't know the research that Bill Chappell has done in order to find these words and link them to magnetometer value or
Mhm.
the magnitude value. I don't know how he's done that. Your
But
guess is as good as mine.
We'll explain it for a spirit locker
Yeah, we will get on to Spirit Talk and how that works.
a little
But
bit later on. Now
yeah,
we're calculating the magnitude.
yeah. So that's how the Ovilus works. One-dimensional list calculates the magnitude and uses that value to get that word.
So
Because it clearly states it's
basically,
calculating the magnitude, and that's how you calculate the magnitude from a 3D or 3-axis sensor.
and basically, the Ovilus has one sensor. So now let's talk about the spirit talker sensors.
Like I said, with my apps, that's how my EMF meters work. I calculated the magnitude, but there's two problems with that. The first problem is not every phone has got a magnetometer sensor or device, iPad, tablet. So what do you do when there's no magnetometer sensor? Most apps or other devices have a random countdown timer that counts down to 0. When it hits 0, chooses a random word from that list. That's not how Spirit Talk works, because there's also another problem. Nothing anywhere is in one dimension.
Exactly.
Everything you see, the Earth, the galaxy, nothing is in one dimension. Everything is in multiple dimensions.
So you have to use multiple sensors.
Well, yeah, I mean, rather than calculating the magnitude to get a one-dimensional number, use all 3 axes to get a 3D value, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I quickly made a little video today about Spirit Talker's sensors. So let's just play that so I can show you what it's doing.
You don't have the sound.
No, there's no sound on it. It's for us
okay.
to talk. We'll talk whilst it's doing stuff. So when you open
Okay.
up Spirit Talker, you got the loading screen. It goes through and finds all of the sensors in your phone.
You know,
So
when
I
you
hope everyone
open
can see this.
Spirit Talker like that, you have all the sensors are calibrating like that.
Yep. So the iPhone and the Android versions are slightly different. The Android version actually has more sensors it can use. You can see there's a magnetometer, an accelerometer, a linear accelerometer, a gyroscope, a gravity sensor, air pressure, temperature, humidity, and then it calibrates them. There's a certain thing that it does when it calibrates, but I'll talk about that in a moment.
Yep.
So yeah, it's found all of those sensors. So there's this little button here.
Yep.
When you click on that, you can see the raw values coming in from those sensors. Unfortunately, I've only got this little box to put these values in, so there's a couple missing. There's the linear accelerometer and the gravity sensor. Now,
So
when
if you if you click on that button, you'll see all different random, not random, but like you're gonna see values like going and crazy. Those are your sensors working.
yeah, they are the raw values coming in from the sensors. They're constantly changing it. I think it's something like 1 times 10 to the minus 15. So it's a very, very low number. These sensors in the phones, every phone has different sensors in. They're all mass-produced, cheap Chinese sensors. The more expensive the phone you have, the probably the better quality the sensors that's been put into the phone, and it might produce less noise. So what you can see here with the sensors values changing, that's known as noise. And you need to remove that noise. So you put in what's known as a low pass filter. There's 2 ways to create a low pass filter. You can either add what's known as an alpha value. So you can take a guess at roughly how much noise is being made. Say, for example, 0.8. Put that in as the low pass filter, and it removes that noise. And then, all the numbers after the decimal place won't be changing, if that makes sense. Another way to remove that noise is you calculate how much noise is being produced. So you keep collecting all these noise values, add them all together, divide that number by how many you've collected, and it will give you an average. So you work out the actual noise that's being produced, and that's how Spirit Talker works. I calculate all of the noise that's being generated by these sensors and remove that noise by using a low pass filter.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just like checking the question. So Richard wanted to know. So in the case of your app, how does the spirit knows how to manipulate all those sensors in union in order to generate the correct raw values that produce the word it wants to communicate?
We will be getting to that, Richard.
We're coming
Don't you worry.
to the keys later on, but now we're talking about the sensors itself.
Because it's very important that you know how the app works before, you need to know the inner workings of what's going on inside the app.
Yeah.
I know to a lot of people it looks like a toy. I'm not very good at graphics, but I'm very, very good at coding. I'm not trying to be big-headed or anything, but I am. I've been doing it for 20 odd years now.
People are good.
So it's
at
what's going on in the background that you need to think of,
You're good with numbers, and I'm good with a camera, and other people are good with other things. But so guys, Spotted Ghost has worked really hard, and he knows how to use those sensors, use those numbers, and we'll get to how that brain works.
Yeah. So I forgot where I was at.
The sensors, all the
yeah. Okay,
decimal.
So my finger just came in and pointed to the EMF meter. So we've turned on the EMF meter now. So Spirit Talker can be used as an EMF meter without the words. And again, this bit here, it's by calculating the magnitude of the magnetometer sensor, and that's what lights up these little circles. And I'll show you that working.
Yeah.
So I get a little magnet. Unfortunately, I'll show it, excuse me, to the camera behind the overlay that I've got of what's going on the actual phone. So there I've showed you where the magnetometer sensor in. This is a Sony XZ Premium phone, and the magnetometer sensor's around here somewhere, but they're in different positions on pretty much every phone. Like iPhones are up here, they could be anywhere in the phone, but on this particular phone, the magnetometer sensor's around here. So as you can see, by using the magnet, the lights on the left changing depending on the magnitude, and you can also see the values of the magnetometer, the raw sensor values changing.
They're going
depending on the position of the magnet around the magnetometer sensor.
So that's just one sensor.
That's all just working off that magnetometer sensor. So it is a proper EMF meter, like the K2. In fact, it works better than a K2 because a K2 that only has one axis,
and it's really sensitive. Sensitive.
Yeah, and it's one axis. Again, this is 3 axes, and I also made a video of testing my Spirit music box out with a K2 next to it and using a big magnet, and I was showing how much more sensitive my app is and how it can pick up magnetic fields from a lot further away than what a K2 meter can. So here, let me just go back a minute. I think I pointed to the gyroscope. Yeah, so if I'm pointing at the gyroscope sensor, so if you watch that, as I move the phone, you can see the gyroscope values change.
Yeah. Because the phone is being moved. So there's basically a little gyroscope in your phone that when you move your phone, it will move and change the values of that sensor.
Yeah. And here with the accelerometer, the quicker you move the phone, the higher the values. So it knows when your phone's moving. The gyroscope knows when your phone is moving. And by using both of them, you can perform a little calculation. You can work out when somebody's walking, like a step counter.
Yeah,
Now, Spirit Talker really was originally made to just be sat in a one position and not moved, but so many people walk around with it. And well, a long time ago, they complained that it kept producing words like
random.
randomly when they were walking around. So
Yep.
had to put another filter in there to detect when someone's moving. It kind of adds more of that filter to stop these spikes coming through.
If I can put it like visually, if you take, for those who knows a spirit music box, if you move the music box, it will make the music.
Yeah.
Well, it was a little bit like that with Spirit Talker. When you were moving Spirit Talker, it was generating random words because it was made to be flat, like Spirit music boxes and other devices.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have
But
to be flat. It just needs to be
but
still, you
still,
know. Yeah.
but you added a filter for those that walk with.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, it could count your steps if I really wanted to. I could put how many steps that they've done, but I'm not going to do that. Did I talk about the linear accelerometer and the gyroscope?
Um,
Sorry, the gravity sensor.
no,
Because I can't fit them onto the screen. The linear accelerometer sensor and the gravity sensor, when you perform a calculation with those, and it gives you the same values as what's coming in through the accelerometer sensor. So that the values from the accelerometer sensor are the same as the linear accelerometer and the gravity sensor values combined.
I just
Does that make
want to,
sense?
yeah, that makes sense. And Ghost Magnet Paranormal, thank you. I've been um, getting my saliva, spending saliva saying the exact same thing. Um, People aren't educated enough that our phones are way better tools that those $400 and $500 stuff that they work good, but this has way more technology than most of the ghost equipment we buy for.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, most ghost hunting equipment runs on some form of sensor, and pretty much every single one of those sensors and more sensors are found in phones. I've always been an Android guy. I've got about 25 phones now, and I used to hate iPhones, but since the iPhone 14 came out, I've bought that. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it is by far the best phone. I've got the iPhone 14 Pro. It's the best phone I've ever owned in my life. It's just the quality, the processors in it. You know, it's I think my iPhone 14 Pro is more powerful than the Mac I'm currently on doing this live stream. And I bought the
Imagine,
Mac about
yes.
3 or 4 years ago, so it's not that old.
It's not that those tools are not good. They are. They are. But
Yeah.
if you don't have the money to buy um, those devices, don't go above and beyond to get money and buy it. This tool, we're explaining how it works. So finally, we will stop saying, "Well, it's just an app." No, it's not just an app. Yes, it's an app, but the app is using the essential of the phones, the sensors.